While we take a break for the holidays, we hope you enjoy this exclusive look, or listen, into our patron-only content. Did you know that supporters of the show get exclusive access to episodes just like this one and our other show, Movie Chronicles with the Pal Bros, as well as early access to our main show, all for the low price of $5. Join now at patreon.com. And now, on with the show.
All right, welcome to our part two of our After Hours show, or maybe not part two. I don't know. It goes along with the other one. We are gonna discuss briefly Godzilla Minus One. Oh boy, this was a good one.
Yeah.
You said last time that you weren't like a huge fan of Godzilla movies, or I don't know, maybe this was off air. I can't remember, but you haven't been that big of a fan of Godzilla movies. So I want to hear your overall thoughts and review. I have mine. I have very high praise. Very high praise. Nope, I'm not gonna do that. I was trying to do a Nicolas Cage impression from SNL. I'm not gonna do that. But it's high praise. High praise.
Yeah. Usually Godzilla movies, like, I'm not rushing to the theater to watch Godzilla versus Kong, or Godzilla X Kong is the next one.
Lame.
I'm not rushing to go see those. I'll watch them. I kind of feel like they just all these movies, like they're monster movies. I did like Kong Skull Island, but it still kind of falls under that same category of, like, it was good, but I mean, those movies, they make them so heavily about the monster, which is supposed to be the bad guy, and you're not there. You have these good guys that you're not really making much of a connection with.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie really did a great job with establishing Godzilla is the bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
and these people that you're following, these are the good guys. Um, and that's why I like this movie, is because uh, I can see Godzilla as a villain. Like, he works well as a villain, but not the main character, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, I know it's Godzilla minus one, or whatever the other Godzilla movies are called, but
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
it's it is supposed to be a villain.
Right. So, well, yeah, okay. So, good point. You have the MonsterVerse. I'm blanking on the studio. Is it Universal? I don't think it's not Universal. Is it Universal? I don't know. It's the studio that's doing the MonsterVerse. You got King Kong, Kong Skull Island. You got not minus one. Godzilla versus Kong. You got Godzilla, King of Monsters, and now you have Godzilla, which is another thing we actually should have talked about. I wish we did in the other episode. But Godzilla X Kong, A New Empire. New Empire, is that it? I think it's called.
I think so.
Yeah. And you got another big bad. Like, this one is like rumored to not focus much on the humans, because that's kind of been the complaint. But the other ones is that it has focused on the humans. It's kind of like superhero movies, like, where there's kind of a guilty pleasure. At least for me, I love those movies. I mean, I don't think they've handled the human characters very well when they tried to do human stories in those ones. But as far as like how, like, Kong Skull Island, I thought was awesome. And Godzilla X versus Kong there was lacking in a lot of ways. But I like the first, like, Godzilla, probably more than most. But you're right. Like, they've turned him into a good guy, which is kind of problematic, because he's not supposed to be. Like, so Godzilla Minus One was a remake of the 1953, I believe, Godzilla movie, which is, where you have the puppet, it's like very mechanical, stomping on miniature buildings that look large but aren't, and the cheesy, it's in the 50s, but it's also a classic, it's based off that, and it's there's been many other Godzilla movies where Godzilla is the villain. The Matthew Broderick, is that his name? I'm having a rough time with names today. The mummy guy. Matthew Broderick. That's his name, right?
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Oh,
What
okay.
money? What mummy guy?
The guys in the mummies. And that I know that's not what he's known for, but that's what first thing that came to
Oh,
mind.
Brendan Fraser.
Sorry, Brendan Fraser. Trevor, cut it out. No, don't cut it out. This is after hours. This is raw. You get all of our stupidity. Um, sorry, it's late. I've just had a newborn, who's 2 weeks old tomorrow, and I'm sick and tired, and I forget
Yeah.
things. Anyways, Brendan Fraser was in a Godzilla movie, and I might be wrong on that. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty sure he was. I remember seeing it. So, anyways,
Huh.
he's a but Godzilla villain. That was more of a modern day take, if I remember correctly. But you have Shin Godzilla, which is I haven't seen it yet. That came out in 2016. Which is another, I think it was another Japanese made Godzilla movie that has had a lot of high praise. Though not didn't do so good on the human story. More of it just a menacing Godzilla. But Godzilla, so he's always been a a metaphor or analogy for nuclear weapons. Like that's the point. Like he's a force of nature that destroys everything in its wake. And the Japanese made this in the aftermath of World War II, and the destruction and the havoc that the nuclear bomb in Hiroshima caused, and just the loss of lives, and just these people having to restart and rebuild, and after losing their families and people they loved and everything. And so it's always been a metaphor for like how the Japanese coped with the destruction that World War II caused. Like it had a very negative effect, and like one thing we noticed in this one is that the government didn't help. Like they didn't receive the help and care that they wanted from the government, from Japan. And you get that in this movie where the citizens have to band together to fight this monster, because it's the government and their choices and the things they've done that have led to this. And even their choices of pretty much starting World War II in a sense with Pearl Harbor and whatnot. And so this was a kind of a historical, Godzilla Minus One, a historical piece. It's more about the aftermath of World War II, upon the
Yeah.
Japanese.
So that's what the name minus one comes from. So
Uh-huh.
minus one is a term for when a government is, or a group of people is um like they've been attacked already, so
Right.
they're like kind of recovering,
Right.
and so they're in that time of minus one,
Hmm.
and that's when Godzilla comes in.
Right.
So they're recovering from the war
Right.
in
And then you have
Hiroshima and all
something.
that,
Right.
and then you have this monster coming in.
Right. Exactly. And yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
go
to
ahead.
kind of get into the actual themes and story, just like right off the bat, you get this guy that was quote unquote a coward
Hmm.
for not killing himself because he was a
Kamikaze
what were
pilot.
those bombers? Yeah, kamikaze uh, pilot, and he pretended like he was out of fuel,
Yeah. Or his
or that
plane
his
needed
plane was
repairs.
ruined,
Yeah.
and so he went to the repair island, and so he was just society and like the people in his family and just everybody looked down on him like he was a
Yeah.
coward,
He was ashamed.
because I mean they lost the war, so it was like essentially they were blaming him for losing the war,
Yep.
and so he was just really beat down on, um and throughout the movie there's just really great character development, and I guess I can kind of pause there before we move too far into the movie,
Oh no. Yeah. I mean,
if you have.
we don't. We yeah. I'd say keep going if we want to keep this brief, because we
Yeah,
could talk all day.
yeah, for
I could
sure,
talk all day about
for
Godzilla. I love
sure,
Godzilla movies,
yeah. So uh and
especially
so
this one.
he's dealing with this, and he's the first person that sees Godzilla.
Yep.
Godzilla comes to this island. He's kind of smaller at this time. He's not huge, like skyscraper size.
Hmm.
Um, he comes out of the water onto the island and kills all the people on the island except for like
One guy.
Was it just the two of them, or was there three
I'm pretty sure
people?
there was one guy that survived besides him.
Okay, yeah. So it's just those two guys that survived,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy was blaming him
Because
for
because
Godzilla too.
he
Oh yeah, yeah,
he
yeah. Because
was
the
supposed to shoot. Get in
yeah
the plane and
he was supposed
shoot
to get in
Godzilla.
the plane and shoot
He froze up.
Godzilla, and he froze up again, and so he was then looked at a coward from that guy,
Yep.
and then so he's just this is I mean this is the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is right off the bat, and it is such a great setup for Godzilla and who he was and the character
Yep.
and how he's looked at as a coward from society. And then you
And it gets worse
fast
when he
forward
gets
to
home.
about middle of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he gets home, and then he meets this girl, and she has a kid with him. Turns out this girl saved this kid. It's not even her kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's just trying to be a good guy, and so he lets him stay with him, and their relationship kind of grows, and then you get kind of halfway through the movie, and you see that he forgives himself for his past, and forgives himself for being a coward,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a really powerful moment. I mean, it was probably 2/3 of the way. It was probably right before the third act. It might have been halfway. Doesn't matter. But right after he does this, Godzilla attacks again, and uh, the girl dies.
Yeah.
She gets blown away. So he forgives himself
Mm-hmm.
for not being a coward, and he's like, okay, I'm not I forgive myself for doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and I have responsibilities now. I have this woman I'm looking after. I have this child I'm looking after. I'm the man that they are looking up to.
Right, which is
I have
interesting
to
because
provide for them.
she feels like she needs to be independent because this guy's not marrying her. Like he hasn't
Yeah,
stepped up, so she goes off to work and she goes to provide for herself, and find a means so that she
yeah,
can survive in case like he doesn't marry her. And so that was part of the reason why she went off. She died is because he wasn't
yeah,
manning up, and then she finally does, but then Godzilla kills her. I mean, she dies,
yeah,
and
yeah. So
not really, but yeah.
and that was like a point where like you can kind of see in his emotions and the way he's looking at them, like
Mm-hmm.
he's like you can see that he was making that decision in his head,
Mm-hmm.
and like that just shows to the acting too. Like this is just
Brilliant.
incredible.
Yeah.
But that he's like making that decision, like, no, this is going to be my family,
Right.
and I'm going to take care of them and provide for them. And then she dies, and then you get into the third act, and this is where the government doesn't step up. It doesn't take care of their responsibilities of destroying Godzilla. And so you have this group of men that were all veterans from World War II,
Mm-hmm.
who are banding together to attack, to make their own little army to attack Godzilla. And then so another just really pivotal moment in this movie for me was towards the end, where our main character is presented with the opportunity to fly a plane into Godzilla and to be a kamikaze and to kill himself and
And he
to
thinks
save
that
the
that's
world.
where he's gonna,
Yeah,
bring honor to himself and do the right thing. Be the kamikaze killer that society wanted him to be,
exactly.
and whatnot. But
Yeah,
I
so
think
the whole movie is leading up to this. The whole movie is leading up to like he was a coward and he needs to be brave. Like
Yeah.
and society was pointing towards that. All the people around him were pointing towards that,
Yep.
and even himself and what he was thinking of himself as a coward, and that he needs to redeem himself and become a kamikaze pilot. And then you get to this point where the guy so he's in the I'll set the scene. He's in the plane, and I should actually backtrack, because another important point of this scene is that the guy that's with him, the mechanic is the same mechanic from the island at the beginning of the movie that was yelling at him and blaming him for basically the war and all those guys that died on the island.
The one who sent him
saying
all
that's
the pictures of all their families, of the guys that died.
Yeah, so at one point in the movie, this guy sends him the pictures of all the people that died on the island. And so you get to this point where the main character he's like, no, there's this plane. It's kind of a busted up plane. I need to fly it into Godzilla. The only person that it would be right for me to regain honor is this guy has to fix the plane. Because I need to redeem myself with him and with what I did to him. So he finds him after a lot of searching, and with some convincing, he comes with him and fixes the plane. And he's sitting there with him, explaining all the controls to him. And he explains all the controls. And then you get to the scene where he's flying into Godzilla and he's gonna kill himself and
go ahead,
blow up Godzilla and save the day and sacrifice himself. And he flies into the plane,
flies into Godzilla.
Flies into Godzilla with the plane. It blows up, kills Godzilla. All his friends see this happen, and they're all so heartbroken and so destroyed, and because they didn't want him to die, because they cared about him, and they didn't want him to fly the plane at all. I forgot to mention that all his friends didn't want him to fly the plane because they knew that's what he was going to do, was kill himself. And these are friends that he found on on a boat from a job that he got, and they really cared about him. And so when he flies in the plane and flies the plane into Godzilla and it blows up and kills Godzilla, you see this pain in their eyes, and a moment goes by and you realize, they realize, hey, what's that? And it shows that he ejected out of the plane. And they cut back to the scene where the guy that was on the island with him, that was blaming him for his cowardice, saying, you don't have to kill yourself. You don't have to be a kamikaze pilot to regain your honor. And he tells him you need to choose life.
Yeah. Not death.
And so it's so powerful to show that this guy that was blaming him and saying that he's the reason for the war and the reason that all those people on the island died, he was saying, basically, I was wrong, and we need to choose life, especially in a moment like this where we are facing a great evil,
right?
And we need to come together and choose life, and we need to,
if we want to rebuild after the war, if we want to rebuild what's been lost, if we want to rise from the dead, from the grave, that's what we need. It was incredible. I think just well handled in so many ways. And like I said, $15 million budget, and they and like the CGI, there were a couple scenes where it's like, I could tell where a little cheaply made, but for the most part it wasn't that many at all. Like the scenes where he's like charging up were incredible. The scene all the scenes in the water, especially when he's like Godzilla's head's up, like that's going to be an iconic scene for so long.
These are, what are those, the destroyer ships, like these are destroyer ships in the ocean fighting Godzilla on a $15 million budget. Like it looks incredible.
It does.
And this is a period piece too. This is a period piece, which already those cost more than money. Most other movies. Like
exactly, it's amazing,
just incredible.
And it was just, and the story was, this is awesome. All the characters were well done. I love all the the friends on the boat, the guys that he met, like they did a really good job with all them. And I mean, we could talk about some of its faults, but I think we're gonna probably wrap it up. There wasn't much faults, honestly. I mean, it was kind of a basic story, but it was well written and well done, and it didn't feel like a monster movie a whole lot, which was okay. And I think Godzilla, they handled Godzilla well. And I
Yeah,
would
the way
say,
they represented
yeah,
Godzilla is that he was a villain that these people, an evil that these people had to come together
hmm
to destroy,
right, yeah,
and they really just showed that throughout the whole movie.
yeah, 100%. And man, best movie of the year for me by far.
Yeah,
Did you come up with a rating for this?
I didn't.
Okay,
Uh,
I didn't either. It's gonna be in the nines for me.
yeah,
Like
for
this
sure.
was like I'll have to think about it a little more, but this was like one of my. It's the best movie I've seen in a while. I
Yeah,
just loved it, and it's pretty
I,
high up there
yeah,
for
and
me.
I definitely see us eventually doing a full on review of this movie.
Oh, for sure.
Uh,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we
uh,
should.
like we're planning on doing a lot of other movies like this,
Yeah,
not just superhero movies.
right.
Our second, because we're gonna take a break for superhero movies in our second season, and so like it might pop up in there whatever we decide for those movies.
Yeah.
But we will do a full on review eventually. And
Okay.
this was just, I mean, mostly me telling the story of the movie, but
hmm
it that was because it was such a great story,
For
and
sure.
a lot of the pivotal moments were just handled so well.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and just to correct my ridiculousness at the beginning, I was kind of right. It was Matthew Broderick. It was Ferris Bueller himself that did the Godzilla movie. It wasn't Brendan Fraser. In my head, it was Brendan
Oh, okay.
Fraser, but I said Matthew Broderick. It was Matthew Broderick. Godzilla. It came out in
Oh,
the
okay.
late '90s, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
Godzilla. I want to go see it again. I remember it being pretty good.
Was there a Godzilla in the early 2000s?
I'm sure there was. There's been so many Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
Um, maybe. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah, I don't
Godzilla
know.
Minus One, incredible movie. Go see it. Go support it.
Yeah.
It was just really refreshing to see a movie that wasn't made in Hollywood, and it was
Yeah.
made by, pretty much made by one guy who, had a passion for this story and wanted to tell his story, and wrote it, directed it, produced it, and it's just well done.
Yeah. For sure.
So that is it for our patron only Godzilla Minus One review. Go see it. Thanks for listening. I guess that's it.
Yep.
Sign
Thank
out.
you.
Sign off.
All right.
Adios. Bye bye.
Bye.